Good evening, distinguished guests, members, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual council meeting. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that on hearing the alarm, you should leave the building via the doors at the back of the chamber and congregate in the north car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phone and any other electronic devices being used to silent. This evening's meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be accessible via the council's website. Finally, please remain seated while speaking if it will cause you difficulty to stand. Also, in view of the hot weather, I'm happy for members to remove their jackets if they so wish. Members are advised that this is an extraordinary meeting of the Council and in accordance with the Constitution, only the items of business listed on the agenda will be considered this evening. No other business will be transacted. So, item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillors Gordon, Wagland, Aaron and Bakish. Are there any others?
Councillor Mashane and Councillor Gordon.
Councillor Aaron.
Item 2, declaration of interest from members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest to be made at this stage?
Madam Mayor, myself and two of my colleagues are members of Essex County Council.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is to designate a leader and deputy leader for the ensuing municipal year 2026-27. According to the Constitution, a leader and deputy leader of the Council are to be elected from members of the Council. May I have nominations for leader of the Council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Barry Aspinall as leader.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second that, and I think I will speak after Councillor Worsfold, if that's agreeable.
Okay. Very much. This council faces many challenges, as all the authorities in Essex do, because we have the shadow of LGR hanging over us, and I know there are differing opinions on what that means, whether it should go ahead across the chamber. But what I do know is that as that debate gathers momentum, and if it goes ahead, which looks 99% certain to me from where I sit, we need a strong voice. And I can't think of anyone better to be the voice of Brentwood in those debates than Councillor Aspinall. Brentwood is his passion. It has been for 40 years plus, I think he's been on this council. I don't want to age you too much, Barry.
Thank you.
He's got deep knowledge and wide experience of the borough, of the council, of how it operates, of our community groups, which are the lifeblood of our borough. And I've come, in the few months I've been deputy leader to Barry, I've come to understand even more just how deep his knowledge and his affection and passion for Brentwood is. It's been a real privilege to serve alongside him. So frankly, there is no one better to ensure the needs of all of our residents are kept at the forefront as we move forward as a borough, potentially into a unitary authority. We need to make sure our voice is heard. And I think Councillor Aspinall is that voice. He cares about every street, every park, every service, without a shadow of a doubt. So by making Councillor Aspinall our leader, we do ensure that Brentwood will have at its helm someone who is proud of the borough, who understands its heritage, its history, and why Brentwood matters to the people that live in our borough. It's my pleasure to move that Councillor Aspinall be the leader for the forthcoming municipal year.
Thank you, Councillor Worsfold. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a pleasure to rise this evening to second the nomination of Councillor Barry Aspinall as leader of Brentwood Borough Council. Now, I've had the opportunity, some may say the privilege, others may describe it as a sentence, of working closely with Barry over the past 3 years. And in that time, I've learnt a great deal from him and heard much of his past experience in the council, in the community and beyond. Unfortunately, the majority of which, Madam Mayor, I'm quite certain are not suitable for this audience. But in all seriousness, what I've seen throughout this time is something far more important: his absolute, consistent and unwavering commitment to Brentwood. For Barry, this council is not just a responsibility, it is in many ways his life's work. And you get to see that in everything he does. The level of history he holds, the time he gives, the effort he puts in, often behind the scenes and outside, speaks volumes. Leadership, particularly in local government, is not always glamorous. It involves difficult decisions, long evenings, and sometimes having to keep a straight face when listening to colleagues, which I'm sure we can all agree is no small task and something some may argue Councillor Aspinall is still work in progress on. And yet Barry approaches all of that with determination, resilience, and most importantly, a genuine passion. What has struck me most over these past 3 years is not just his knowledge, but how much he cares. He cares about the residents, he cares about the services we provide, and he cares deeply about the reputation and the future of Brentwood. And that's not something you can teach, it's something you either have or you don't. And Barry has it in absolute abundance. I've seen firsthand the hours he puts in, the challenges he navigates, and the responsibility he carries. I think it's only right that we recognise the scale of his commitment. So for me, Madam Mayor, it is a pleasure, not just a formality, to support his continued leadership of this council and this borough. Because if you want someone leading Brentwood who understands it, who believes in it, and who completely invested in its success, then you will struggle to find anyone more committed than Councillor Aspinall. Madam Mayor, I'm proud to second the nomination of Councillor Aspinall as leader of Brentwood Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Russell, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the words commitment, passion, experience, knowledge, consistency, I agree with all of that. Outside of this chamber, my personal view on Councillor Aspinall is that he's a very nice guy and I have a lot of respect for him. However, we hear a lot about proportionate representation and this council is in no overall control. Therefore, he does not have the support of the borough. So I will not be supporting the recommendations and be voting against. And this will be a similar theme throughout. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Parker, you also wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, taking into account what my leader has just said, members over there might think it rather churlish that there's no support on this side for Councillor Aspinall. And the tributes paid, certainly for length of service and so on and so forth, are certainly something to take on board. But for me, I cannot, and I hope other people cannot vote. You have the numbers, because we seem to have mislaid a couple of our members, which puts the numbers on your side. But last year, the leader put his name and the name of this council to a letter of intent to create a new town stretching from Worley to Rochford or beyond. And we all know that a new town has something in the region of 20 to 40,000 houses. That might seem commendable, but it wasn't, because that letter went with our leader's signature without coming to this chamber. That should have been a resignation then. It wasn't. You supported him. He shouldn't be in this position now to be leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Godfrey, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll echo the sentiments of the others who have spoken before me, and I've known of Barry for years, and outside of this chamber, I agree, he's an honourable and decent man. But I cannot and will not vote for him as leader of this council. I look at what's happening with the Brentwood Centre, the 25 million, the biggest single spend that's going on there. I don't understand how that's come to fruition. I look at the parks that are falling into disrepair that this council has spent money on before, such as the water park in King George's Playing Field. Those are decisions that have taken place in this council. Maintenance there hasn't been upheld. There's a number of other issues going on here. Myself and my colleagues cannot vote for him as leader of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We could continue to wax lyrical about issues we have with the Liberal Democrat Labour coalition over the last 12 months, whether it's this ridiculous quest for net zero at great expense to the taxpayer, whether it's putting council tax up when it didn't need to be increased, whether it's investing in ridiculous vanity projects that include luxury spas and goodness knows what else. But I'm not going to do that, even though I have just done it. I want to talk about the illegitimacy of this administration. I've never seen such a hodgepodge, superglued, sellotaped patchwork quilt of an administration put together hastily and in absolute desperation. Talk about wanting to cling on to power for the sake of power. It's illegitimate. I won't be voting for it.
If anybody else has anything to add, please let me know, but otherwise I'd like to go to the vote. Do you have something different to add, Councillor Barber? Yes. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll reiterate, my comments are not aimed at Councillor Aspinall personally. It's around his record of the policies that he supports and his administration advocates. I'll focus on one particular policy that hasn't been raised by my other colleagues, although I agree with the sentiments of what's just been said. Local government reform. We just heard that Councillor Worsfold, I think, said Councillor Aspinall was defending Brentwood. From what I can see, not one thing that's been proposed for local government reform has been pushed back on. And we need to actually have someone leading this council who's actually going to try and retain this council and not just comply with national requests to move to unitary authorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Minor, do you have something to add?
I certainly do, yeah. There's a couple of points which I think need to be made after those speeches. A couple of very specific things. First of all, we've had the claim that somebody or other, another council has never seen such a hodgepodge of an administration, which is very odd because that exact councillor was part of an administration which involved 3 party political groups and an independent. So that was even more of a hodgepodge than this administration. Apparently that councillor seems to have forgotten the administration that he was involved with. We've also had a claim that there's some way in which Councillor Aspinall is failing to defend this council, which is particularly odd given what happened 1 week ago. And I'm going to read out once more what both the Conservatives and Reform members on this council did 1 week ago, which is to vote in favour of an option which this council's officers told us would weaken Brentwood's influence over the content of the draft SCO and potentially expose the authority to reputational and operational risk. That was a decision made last week when members on the opposition side of the chamber had the numbers. That was what they did. That was what they did when they had their brief opportunity to achieve something. I'm simply repeating, Councillor Russell.
Just a moment, Councillor Minor, please.
The information. The reason why we're here tonight is because negotiations failed outside of this chamber. There is equal blame across this chamber. The member was not party to that conversation.
What went on last week outside this chamber is something that no member of the public and nobody except for the people who are involved can know. What we're talking about here is an administration which has the numbers. What happened last week, as I said, is that the Conservative group and the Reform group, given a very small window of opportunity to actually achieve something with this council, made sure that it weakened Brentwood's influence over the local government reform process and exposed the authority to reputation or operational risk. It was right there in the agenda. I read it out for them, then they voted and did it. That's exactly what those people are, and that's what they want, and they have the gall to try and criticise somebody who's trying to do the opposite. It's terrible.
Thank you, Councillor Minor. I would really now like to go to the vote. Are you happy to do this with a show of hands? Yeah. So, 4. Yeah, Barry.
Yeah, against.
Against?
That's Councillor Aspinall and Councillor Aspinall.
Right. I declare Councillor Aspinall is duly elected as leader of the council for the municipal year 2026-2027. I will now take nominations for the deputy leader of the council.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I nominate Councillor David Worsfold as Deputy Leader of this Council.
Do you have?
Yes, I'd like to second the nomination, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for being here tonight. May I say, it's a fantastic position to be in when so many people around this chamber have made the commitment to be back here again, and thank you very much. I know how much that's personally cost you, because you were thinking about that when you broke your ankle. David Worsfold is a phenomenal deputy leader, is a phenomenal person, but I need, in the position I'm in going forward, someone I can rely on, can count on, can phone at any time to run things by. I've had that benefit of that for the last 3 years for various people. David is certainly one of those that I would consult before, and it's certainly one that I'll consult now. And I've got no hesitation that this council would be in safe hands outside when negotiations are getting hard or when our voice is needed, if I'm not there, or even if I am there and he's accompanying me along, because a lot of these meetings are for both of us, not just me, but other representatives of this council. And it is going to be tough, it's going to be long, it's going to be enduring. And no, despite what Councillor from across the divide here states, that we haven't pushed back, this is a government decision. There is no pushing back. It can be challenged, and we're still waiting to see that someone is going to challenge that. But at the moment, the government tell us we've got to do something. It's a request from them. We do it. We can't say no. We go along with the process. We have to do it. That's how I've always seen local government. Unfortunately, central government always interfere.
I have to stand again, I'm sorry, but the leader is going off subject here. He's principally supporting his deputy.
Madam Mayor, it's my interrupting. Madam Mayor, this is my turn to speak. I'm sorry that it offends, but this is part of what I'm talking about. You need to have resilience, you need to have stamina, you've got to have the knowledge. David Worsfold has that in abundance. Not be deflected by histrionics here. We saw what happened last week when that was allowed to continue, simply because they had more votes
Sorry,
on the
Councillor
night.
Aspinall, could you keep to
We
David
now,
Worsfold, please? Thank you.
okay, totally and utterly happy to propose Councillor David Worsfold as Deputy Leader of this Council.
Thank you. Councillor Kendall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased to second the nomination for David Worsfold. David and his wife, Marinette, and family have lived in Brentwood since 1995. They've got 4 daughters and 2 granddaughters. That's obviously kept them very busy. David's been a financial journalist for over 40 years, and he's worked freelance for the last 13 years. Like me, David got involved in politics at a young age, joining Young Liberals, always a good start. And he then served as a Lib Dem councillor in Leighton on Waltham Forest Council between 1988 to 94. So that's for 6 years before he moved to Shenfield. David was elected as a Shenfield Borough Councillor in 2023 and re-elected again in 2025, coming top of the poll despite being the last name on the ballot paper, which isn't easy these days. He's been Deputy Leader of the Borough Council since last autumn. Away from politics, I know that David has a number of passions in his life, including his faith with the local cathedral. He's a keen supporter of Leyton Orient Football Club. He loves classical music and travelling. He sings with local choirs, including the one at Brentwood Cathedral, and he and his family housed a Ukrainian mother and a 9-year-old daughter for 8 months. David established the first girls' football club in Brentwood in 1993 with Paul Jeter, which was initially linked to the Ursuline. And then as Brentwood Town Ladies, they helped create the first adult women's team in Brentwood. I know he's a keen cricket fan and an Essex member, and he tells me he's played against Graham Gooch and Alan Border in charity matches. Well done. He also played football till he was 52. I know some of our members are still going, Councillor Haig, but David tells me he played at the old Wembley Stadium twice. Well done. Now, as a councillor, we all know David is very passionate about the environment, and he's led the campaign in the borough to reduce carbon emissions. Not everyone's want, but it's something we feel very strongly about on this side. He's shown as chair of the Clean and Green Committee and in his role as deputy leader that he can provide effective leadership and strong support to Barry the leader. He can also provide a calm and measured response when needed, and there are many times when it is, both inside and outside the council chamber. Now, despite the vote last week, the Borough Council faces some tough challenges ahead, particularly with LGR. But I know David will do a good job with Barry representing our interest and making sure our voices are heard. I'm very pleased to second the nomination. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Does anybody else want to speak? Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, we hear things like passionate about the environment. It's very commendable, reliable, has a lot of knowledge, and we share a love of classical music, which is very good. We heard a lot about the various hobbies, and I can say that outside this chamber, again, he's a very nice guy, and I have a lot of respect for him. However, this is a council of no overall control, and therefore doesn't have the support of the borough, so I'll be voted against it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Russell. Nobody else to speak? So we'll go to the vote. Vote by show of hands. For? Against? Abstain? Motion carried. Thank you. I declare Councillor Walsford is duly elected as Deputy Leader of the Council for the municipal year 2026-2027. Item 4, the Leader's Statement. The process for the Leader's Statement is set out in Standing Order 6.1 of the Council's procedural rules. Councillor Aspinall, would you like to make your Leader's Statement? You may speak for up to 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, for your entertainment, I've passed that responsibility of reading my statement over to Jayla Plain, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Plain.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. It is a time in the evening that the leader's statement is required to be placed before this chamber. The success of this council has had in the preceding 12 months has been nothing less than spectacular. Every councillor and officer in this chamber can congratulate themselves on a job exceedingly well done, especially those in administration. We've had a revisited peer review undertaken by officers and councillors from across the UK who have confirmed a significant improvement in the way that our borough is being run and the quality of services being provided to its residents. We've had the regulator of housing positioning Brentwood's status as with an award of C2, joining just a handful of other authorities around the country. Many neighbouring authorities have achieved far lower in that league table. We have, as an authority, set a balanced budget for the third year running and have continued to reduce our level of debt that we inherited on taking control of the council. This amounts to over £44 million repaid so far. We are providing a house building programme that is the first of its kind in the region, the largest council-owned new build in the county. This year, selected residents from our housing waiting list will receive keys to their new homes. This is due to take place towards the end of this year for those new builds in Hutton. A topping out ceremony will take place at Brookfield Close in the next few weeks, which will mark the significance of the progress made so far in our programme of providing 145 new wholly council-owned properties for the residents of our borough. We've also replaced the broken and outdated car parking machinery and resurfaced previously neglected and shabby William Hunter Way car park. Along with these wonderful achievements, we continue to address the threat of climate change within our sphere of operation and seek to support our residents and businesses to explore ways to become more energy efficient and reduce their energy costs. Pedestrians on footpaths and residents enjoying their gardens can feel safe in the knowledge that the idling refuse vehicle collecting their recycling and waste does not and will not affect their health, as emissions from that vehicle are non-poisonous, as all Brentwood's fleets are now running on HVO oil, not diesel. Publicly accessible EV chargers are now installed in various locations throughout the borough. A programme of solar panel installation has been agreed for the Brentwood Centre redevelopment, and working with partners, we'll explore further opportunities to enable other council-owned assets throughout the borough to benefit from this form of energy. Brentwood Council has allocated funding to make improvements to the Battery Centre, looking at a range of leisure uses to support the town centre, which will include a cinema and first-class food outlets and restaurants. We've also been successful in working with Essex Highways and our own enforcement team in resurfacing the High Street so that double yellow lines can be enforced and an end to anti-social parking can begin. Brentwood Council officers continue their pursuit of fly tippers, most recently prosecuting a prolific offender who is awaiting sentencing in July, and his vehicle has already been confiscated to be crushed. This individual has been established as being responsible for 25% of fly tips in the borough. We have also launched a rural litter pick programme that has been welcomed by residents, and we aim to extend the programme later this year. I would like to take this opportunity, Madam Mayor, to thank all those councillors that serve on outside bodies for their diligent work on behalf, along with those parish councillors who also take on responsibility of administering services for their residents. This year, we're engaging with all parish councils and residents of non-parished areas to seek views on extending parish governance across the whole borough, in line with the arrangements being considered elsewhere in Essex, as part of the move to a new unitary authorities. Following the government's decision to combine Essex County Council and all districts into unitary councils, I spent a lot of time last year negotiating with other leaders and working on our jointly agreed proposal. The government have announced that that they believe 5 unitary authorities are required in Essex. And I would like to take the opportunity at this time, Madam Mayor, to thank Councillors Gareth and Tim Barrett, David Worsfold, Vicky Davis and Ben Wrigley for assisting me in this process. Brentwood will be joined with Chelmsford and Malden as one of those unitary authorities. This brings many challenges, one being work required to provide the structure that will be necessary for a shadow authority to take up the reins in May 2027. We have, Madam Mayor, a lot to be proud of in our achievements last year, but we have more to do. Work has not stopped, just to increase its intensity and volume. We look forward to a much enhanced modern Brentwood Centre that will provide excellent quality facilities for users. Our businesses, our residents and our visitors will enjoy much enhanced, safer experience. We look forward to an enhanced High Street and Bay Tree Centre once those works have commenced. We are also committed to greatly improving our depot that will not only benefit our users but provide a far more efficient service. With the government determined to bring Brentwood Borough Council to an end in April 2028 as part of local government reorganisation, I'm equally determined that Brentwood's proud legacy will not be diminished but strengthened. This is why I intend to bring forward proposals for a community asset fund to support as many community organisations as possible to help secure their long-term future. Further details will be brought to future meetings of the Council, and I hope colleagues across this chamber will support this ambition so that the organisations which do so much for our borough and our residents are left stronger, more resilient and better equipped for the years ahead. At a time of significant change, we have a duty not simply to manage transition, but to shape it in a way that protects Brentwood's identity, delivers lasting social and economic value, and safeguards the support and opportunities our residents rightly expect. Another task I've given myself is to oversee a celebration of Brentwood to mark the 800th year anniversary of Brentwood Town receiving the Royal Charter in the year 2027. This charter allowed Brentwood to host a market. I will enlist the help of all those councillors and officers that would like to be involved in this project, and later in the year I will ensure that you are fully aware of dates to progress this further. I am determined that with combined skills of the Brentwood Alliance administration, we can build on last year's success and make 2026 a year we can look forward to increasing our revenue from investment, provide excellent services and progressing our aims, making Brentwood the cleaner, greener and safer borough residents will be proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Russell, would you like to make your statement? You may speak for up to 10 minutes.
Madam Mayor, Mr Deputy Mayor, firstly, on behalf of the Conservative Group, I wish you both belated congratulations on your rightful elevation to Mayor and Deputy Mayor. I commend the leader's ambitious speech. Lots of points on there to deliver on. I'm a little afraid it might be spreading themselves a little thin. To all members that have successfully defended their seats and those who are joining us for the first time, I offer you my sincere congratulations and a warm welcome. My thoughts go out to all those that were not successful in defending their seats and all who campaigned hard but not successful in being elected. If I may be so bold and offer some unsolicited advice to all members, during the year we spend comparatively little time within this chamber. What you do and say here, or indeed which political party you represent, does little to serve your residents. Some of the finest members this council has known spoke very rarely in these meetings, yet the work they carried out within the community spoke volumes about their character and commitment. There is no escaping the fact that these recent local elections have delivered a clear and significant shift in our local political landscape, which has brought new representatives into our council chamber for the first time. This outcome is a powerful reminder of that exactly how our democratic process works. It is ever-changing. It is responsive to mood of the electorate, and it demands that we all listen carefully and humbly to the messages sent by the voters of Brentwood. As a Conservative group, we return to this chamber as the principal opposition. We accept that position clearly and with absolute purpose. Our role is to hold the administration, the Brentwood Alliance, firmly to account. We will scrutinise their policies thoroughly, challenge their decisions where necessary, question their spending, and ensure that every action they take is justified, transparent, and genuinely in the best interests of the residents. However, being a strong opposition does not mean opposing everything, nor does it mean seeking conflict for the sake of it. As I've said in the past, where our values align, where our policies share the same goal, and when working together can deliver better results for the people of Brentwood, we will absolutely seek to collaborate. There are matters that transcend party lines, fundamental issues that define the character and quality of life of our borough. And on these, I would very much like to think that every member in this chamber, regardless of politics, can come together. And there are few issues more fundamental to Brentwood, which was not mentioned in the leader's speech, than the protection of the Greenbelt. This is the defining feature of our borough. It is what separates us from the endless sprawl of London and neighbouring towns. It protects our villages, our countryside, our heritage and our environment. We know from speaking to residents right across the borough that protecting our open spaces is one of the highest priorities. They do not want to see our fields, our woodlands and our cherished countryside used as a dumping ground for housing targets that do not reflect our local need or infrastructure capacity. We believe in sustainable development, yes, but development that happens in the right place, at the right scale, and which protects the precious environment that makes Brentwood such a wonderful place to live. We want our children and our grandchildren to enjoy the same access to nature, fresh air and open landscapes that we have been fortunate enough to enjoy. Linked closely to both our environment and our pride in this borough is our determination to see Brentwood cleaner, tidier and free from the blight of fly tipping and littering. It is frankly unacceptable that in a borough as beautiful as ours, we still see piles of waste dumped in lay-bys, on verges, in country lanes and on our open spaces. Fly tipping is not just an eyesore, it is criminal, it harms our wildlife, it pollutes our land and water, and it costs this council, and therefore the taxpayer, tens of thousands of pounds every year to clear up. It is a problem that frustrates residents immensely, and rightly so. We will be pressing the administration to take much stronger action to tackle this issue head on. That means better enforcement, more visible patrols, better use of technology such as CCTV and robust penalties for those caught illegally dumping waste. We want Brentwood to be recognised not just for its beauty, but for how well we look after it. Central to keeping our streets and homes clean is our waste collection service. And I want to be absolutely clear of our position here. We are committed to defending the weekly black bag collection, which residents across this borough value deeply and rightly expect. On no account can we allow any administration to force through a switch to a fortnightly general waste collection. That would be a backward step, one that would lead to overflowing bins, more overflowing bins, increased litter, more fly tipping and unwanted pests in our neighbourhoods. Problems that other areas have suffered and which Brentwood residents simply will not accept. Alongside protecting our environment and our services, we must work tirelessly to ensure Brentwood is a prosperous place where businesses can thrive, grow and create local jobs. Our high streets, our industrial estates, our independent shops and our service providers are the heartbeat to our local economy. As a group, we believe strongly in backing of business. We want to see a business environment that is welcoming, supportive and free from unnecessary red tape and bureaucracy. We need to ensure that our town centres remain vibrant and attractive destinations, places where people want to visit, shop, eat and spend time, whether it's supporting our market, helping independent retailers, or ensuring our commercial areas are well maintained and safe. We will push for measures that strengthen our local economy. We must take short-term measures to fill the void shops in our high streets and the Bay Tree Centre, either with pop-up shops or indoor markets to bring in some much-needed footfall to the area. A prosperous borough means a better quality of life for everyone. Looking ahead in the coming year and beyond, our focus must remain firmly on long-term strength and stability of this borough. A key priority for the Conservative group in the months ahead will be to monitor the spending and how we influence the formation of the budget for the next financial year, whether directly or via an amendment. The world of local government is uncertain at present, with ongoing discussions regarding reorganisation and possible changes to how councils are structured, funded and operate. Whatever the outcome, those national debates and those at Essex County Council, our duty is to ensure Brentwood is fully prepared through proper consultation, not rushed through at huge expense, which will take half a century to break even. It will 2081 will be the year that the break even from LGR. Whether local government reorganisation takes place or not, we cannot simply wait and see. We must plan, manage our resources carefully, protect our reserves where appropriate, ensure the essential services are maintained and improved. Sound finances are the foundation upon which all good service delivery is built, and we will be pushing hard to ensure that this council plans wisely, spends carefully, prioritises effectively and protects the vital services that matter most to our residents, from waste collection and street cleaning to planning services, housing support and community safety. Madam Mayor, this is a new council with a fresh composition, new voices and new challenges ahead. There will be robust debate. There will be disagreements and there will be different visions for the future. That is the nature of democracy and it is healthy. But I'm confident that if we remember why we are here, to serve the people of Brentwood, we can navigate these years successfully. In conclusion, the Conservative group stand ready to play our part, to challenge where necessary, to propose positive alternatives, to support where we agree and always fight for the best interest of this wonderful borough and for everyone who calls it home. We will champion our green belt, we will back our businesses, we will defend our essential services, including weekly waste collection, we will demand a cleaner and safer environment, and we will ensure that Brentwood remains strong, prosperous and well governed, come what may, borough-wide. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Godfrey, would you like to make your statement? You may speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I would like to thank the residents of Brentwood who have placed their trust in us. Despite the best efforts of modern politics, the people were still allowed to vote. I also want to congratulate every councillor elected to this chamber, regardless of party. Democracy only works when people are willing to stand, speak, lose occasionally, and still come back the next day. The trust that voters have placed in all of us matters enormously. I've been passionate about Brentwood since I moved here. That's over 50 years ago. Every park, every service, every building, and I'm working on every pub is becoming part of my DNA. Now, I confess, arriving here in this chamber feels slightly surreal. A little less than 2 years ago, during a parliamentary hustings, reform was described as irrelevant. Not dangerous, not persuasive, not even particularly annoying, just irrelevant. I took no offence. In politics, certainty usually precedes embarrassment, and soon enough it did. We now have a total of 8 duly elected Reform councillors across Brentwood, including the now Deputy Leader of Essex County Council. What has happened here is not some great ideological revolution. The people of Brentwood have not suddenly become extremists. They have not woken up one morning demanding chaos, barricades, or interpretive dance protests outside the town hall. What residents actually want is very simple. They want competence, they want value for money, they want safe streets, and they want plain speaking. Outside of this chamber, people notice things. They notice council tax rises outpaced only by potholes. They notice planning decisions that somehow manage to upset both people who want development and people who don't. They notice public services becoming steadily more expensive while simultaneously becoming harder to access. And perhaps more importantly, they notice when politicians stop sounding like human beings and start sounding like a corporate meditation app. That disconnect matters, because politics cannot survive indefinitely as a performance art where ordinary concerns are treated as embarrassments to be managed rather than problems to be solved. People are not irrational for wanting value for money, safe streets, or sane spending priorities, nor are they fools for suspecting modern politics serves politicians more than the public. Residents do not expect miracles, but they would settle for occasional evidence of common sense. That, I think, is why reform has grown. Not because people suddenly agree on everything, but because many residents feel that too often the major parties have become different management teams, reading from the same worn-out scripts, taking whatever measures they can to cling on to power. Now, I appreciate local government is difficult, budgets shrink, demand grows, and Westminster offloads responsibilities with the grace of someone throwing bricks. I'm not claiming reform councillors possess magical solutions unavailable to lesser mortals. We don't. But we do intend to bring something increasingly rare into politics: clarity. We will say what we think, and we will ask awkward questions. We will challenge waste where we see it. We will support good ideas, regardless of which party proposes them, and we will oppose bad ideas, regardless of how fashionable they happen to be at the time. Because scrutiny is not sabotage, disagreement is not extremism, and democracy is supposed to involve debate. I also think it's important to say this. The voters did not send any of us here to behave like tribal football supporters or ballroom dancers. They expect adults, they expect principles, and they expect standards. And they expect us to remember something politicians often forget. These seats do not belong to us, they are borrowed, temporarily. The public can remove every single one of us the moment they conclude we have mistaken authority for entitlement. History, as we are slowly finding out, is full of political parties that believe themselves permanent right up until the voters introduce them to reality. So yes, reform may once have been dismissed as irrelevant, or more recently as that lot. But the electorate has now delivered a different verdict. The irrelevant one has become the irreverent 8. Irreverent enough to challenge complacency, irreverent enough to question assumptions, and irreverent enough to say out loud what many residents have been quietly saying for years. We are here to serve the public, not ourselves.
30 seconds.
By honouring the trust placed in us by the residents of Brentwood, we intend to work to deliver the best for our borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. So we move to item 5, committees and their terms of reference. The council is requested to formally establish these committees, or those committees it considers necessary to fulfil its functions in the ensuing municipal year, in accordance with the requirements of both legislation and the council's constitution. The report begins on page 9 of the agenda, and the recommendations are on the same page. Councillor Aspinall, please move the recommendations.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second it and reserve my right to speak.
So we can open the debate. Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is probably the time in the agenda I wanted to mention that there was a time when 5 of us on this side of the chamber, included Councillor Quirk, were part of the administration on that side of the chamber, and we come under great criticism by the then opposition for broadening our committees. Protest was made by the opposition that we were doing so to spread special responsibility allowance across our group. And I understand that I believe that out of 20 of the Brentwood Alliance members, there are just 4 that don't bag this bonus. Therefore, I want to save some money for the taxpayer when we are in these meetings. By definition, an item for note is a report update or a piece of information that is presented solely for the awareness of the committee. There are no recommendations, no decisions required, and no votes taken. So I wonder if I may move a motion without notice under Rule 13.1 and move that that we create or amend a rule, the Constitution Working Group, that makes sure that items to note are in the chair's update rather than part of the agenda body itself. Might save us some time, therefore some money. Thank you.
Taking note of that. Thank you.
Yeah, from second way.
Sorry, thank you. I just want to mention that the Housing Committee often has many things to note which are on maintenance and following on from compliance issues, things like that, which actually involve a lot of scrutiny back and forth between the officers. I don't want to remove them, so I think we should think about this a bit more intently and refer it back to the CWG. I think there is a broad amount of support here, but yeah, I don't think we can do it straight away. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak? Councillor Chinay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a separate question, just about the former Scrutiny, Performance and Standards Committee. Now, we've talked a lot about working cross-party, asking awkward questions. That committee was, in my first year, a very good committee for doing that. There was a lot of bipartisan work. Councillor Said, sadly, who sadly lost her seat, she was asking excellent questions on that committee. And I think up until last week it was going to exist, but now it doesn't exist. Now I understand audit and scrutiny can be combined, scrutiny can happen elsewhere, but I just want on the record an explanation as to why the Scrutiny, Performance and Standards Committee now no longer exists. Thank you.
I'll hand you over to the Deputy Mayor who has a statement.
Can you hear me now?
Ben.
Yeah. Right. Within the committee-style governance system adopted by this council, there is no requirement for a separate scrutiny committee. Committees are constituted on a politically balanced basis, ensuring cross-party representation, transparency in decision-making, and robust member engagement. This structure incorporates debate and constructive challenge as an integral part of the decision-making process, therefore providing effective real-time scrutiny. The Audit, Governance and Standards Committee will consider any recommendations from service committees to establish working groups, where appropriate, to undertake detailed review of specific matters of concern.
Councillor Hurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. May I wish you a rapid recovery from your recent accident. Very sorry to hear you've hurt yourself. Just before I start, can I just clarify? So the notice of that motion that was proposed by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Plain, I think has passed without debate. Is that fair?
Yeah, it goes straight to.
Well, that's what I'm trying to clarify. Is it actually passed, or is it actually an amendment to the recommendation in the papers? Because I'm not going to want to vote for the recommendation in the papers for reasons I'm about to articulate, but would very much like to vote for the notice without motion that was put forward and seconded by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Plain. So if you tie the two together, you're tying me in knots. Shall I sit down and let you clarify?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Yeah, obviously, Councillor Russell put in a motion to be added to what was actually moved by Councillor Aspinall. It was seconded, but Councillor Aspinall already accepted it as well, so that will now be part of the motion. So that will be added into the minutes for clarification. Okay? Yeah, it's part of the motion. It's a recommendation. It's in the recommendation. Do you want me to add it to the recommendations?
To clarify, I thought it was accepted and it goes straight to the Constitution Working Group without debate, correct? Yeah.
In that case, thank you. I'm very happy to support that happening and going to the working group without debate. But the recommendations on page 9 about committees in terms of reference, I think we've just heard that there are challenges around on that. Certainly understand what Councillor Rigby said, but if you actually read the LGA guidance says very clearly that whilst for a committee system it is not a requirement to have a scrutiny committee, it is still best practice. And this council administration has chosen not to pursue best practice in that regard. That, for me, is one challenge around voting for the recommendations on item 5 on pages 9 and 10. The other is, and that goes to the heart of the essence of no overall control, the controversy that we had back at full council, the issue that Councillor Minot raised this evening, and the issue that's been raised this evening around the illegitimacy of the construct, the fabrication that we have, pretending that we have a political party in this chamber which was voted for by a majority of the residents, which is simply not the case. The reality is that we have no overall control, and the structure here should reflect no overall control. The difficulties of having a construct, an illegitimate construct in the nature that we have, were very much evidenced on the night last week. Clearly, on that night, there were a majority of members in this chamber who felt that the risks of pursuing the very flawed recommendations around endorsing the proposals for 5 unitary councils in this county outweighed the risks that were articulated by officers in that paper around us no longer having a leading seat at the table. I think that was a very accurate and good debate, and very much happy to support the fact that those risks were much higher, because we were looking at recommendations which frankly would have been dysfunctional in terms of the distribution of seats, etc. It wasn't going to work, and we needed to turn it down. Sadly, that means that we're now no longer in a position to vote for something that would work for a few months, which is unfortunate, and just reflects the fact that if we'd taken on board that there is no overall control and had the discussion around what the structure should be before we actually had a paper come forward, instead of pretending that we have a majority administration in this chamber now, we would have got through that and it would have been a much healthier and much better position. We have to work together if we are in this sort of no overall control situation. That is not what's on the table here in terms of the structure of these committees.
30
this
seconds.
Unfortunate construct has been given a majority on every single committee and has been given the chair of every single committee. That is not the way that the residents of this borough have voted, and I cannot support it.
Yeah.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, could I just seek some clarification, please, between agenda item 5 and agenda item 6? So on page 26, for Planning Committee, it says name substitutes who have been trained. On agenda item 6, you will see on page 47, it says any member from the group that has received the planning training, but it does, however, list named substitutes. There is a contradiction between these two agenda items that I would have expected both the leader and the deputy leader to have picked up tonight. One is contradicting the other. Can we just ask which one is correct and which one is wrong, please?
Councillor Barrett?
Madam Mayor, if I may help Councillor Barber, my understanding in the subcommittee that was the eligibility rules for a substitute. If that clarity, if that wouldn't be clarified, eligible substitutes are those from the political group who have been trained. I'm sure that will get that the intent was eligibility. That did appear last year in the exact same terminology that Councillor Barber didn't pick up. So unfortunately, that could have corrected us for this year. But nevertheless, I think if that helps to clarify it, I think adding in the later word, eligible substitutes are those members from the appellate group who've received planning training. That solves the problem quite accurately for all of us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Chinnery with regard to the fact that there's no scrutiny committee anymore. One would have to draw the conclusion that no scrutiny committee means that this administration, hodgepodge as it is, doesn't want to be scrutinised. That has to be the natural conclusion, so I won't be voting for this. But I also have a question. On page 10, R4, the fourth part of the recommendation that the Council's monitoring officer be authorised to make any necessary changes to the Constitution, that would seem a bit loose to me. I mean, any constitutional changes whatsoever? Can we tighten it, please? Can we have a form of words that specifically relates to a specific function within this particular agenda item? Otherwise, no disrespect to Ms Mayhew, she could do whatever she wanted to our Constitution.
It's actually based on these recommendations.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, say again.
It's actually based on these
I
recommendations.
think it needs to be tightened. Do I have to move something to make that happen?
No.
It's too loose, is my point. I'll move a motion that we need a better form of words. Do I have a seconder? Well, it's up to you. We can go through the motion thing and you can vote against it if you like. But frankly, I think it's madness that we're effectively allowing a recommendation that says the monitoring officer can do whatever they want to the Constitution. It doesn't say it's specific to this item. Can we just amend it, please? Let's just be sensible.
May I suggest we simply say that result from these recommendations?
Right, we've taken that on board and it's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor LePlane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll hold fire for this item, so I'll not speak now.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? I'll go back to Councillor Worsford, who reserved his right to speak.
I'm happy for the vote to be taken, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Aspinall? Same? Absolutely fine, Madam Mayor. Yeah, okay. So we'll move to the vote. We will now vote on the recommendations before us as moved by Councillor Aspinall and seconded by Councillor Worsford as follows on block. Members are asked to R1 that the committees listed in Appendix A be appointed for the municipal year 26-27, that the size of the committees listed in Appendix A be agreed, that the terms of reference of the committees listed in Appendix A be agreed, and that the Council's monitoring officer be authorised to make any necessary changes to the Constitution that are, sorry,
I approved this recommendation. I approved it. That have been approved in this recommendation.
that have been approved in this recommendation.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, that are specific to this agenda item. I think we'll cover it.
Yeah. So I don't change the Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all those in favour? Against? Abstain? The motion is carried. Item 6, political balance, allocation of committee seats and committee appointments. The report begins on page 33 of the agenda. The council is required to approve the allocation of seats on committees, receive the nominations from political groups and make appointments to committees as shown in the nomination sheets and appoint the chairs and vice chairs of committees. The recommendations are shown on page 25 of the agenda. As revised, Appendix A has been tabled this evening. Councillor Aspinall, please move for your recommendations. You have 5 minutes to speak.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, so we can open the debate. Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's no surprise to you that I said that there will be a similar theme that will ensue throughout the night, and for the reasons mentioned before, I cannot support this. Thank you.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And may I add my condolences to your injury and wish you a speedy recovery. Obviously, this is the first time I've spoken in the chamber. I'm one of the newly elected councillors, as you all know. I'm very aware that I am learning and I'm appreciative of all the training and all the help from other councillors. So I don't mean any disrespect in what I'm about to say, but I will not be voting for this this recommendation, partly because just looking at the balance of powers, people have mentioned this already, but there seems to be very much a rounding down of the true political party. Obviously, in the recent election, the Reform Party won 50% of the votes of the seats, and this isn't reflected in the political balance on the committees, and so for that reason, I won't be voting for this amendment. Sorry, this recommendation.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like? Councillor Quirk.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, isn't it, from Councillor Nicholson, but just can I add something, please? I understand the caveat here, the Section 15 of the Local Government and Housing Act, which means that the hodgepodge administration over here have, as a matter of their committees, a majority by way of that legislation. But it does seem that Reform have been rather disadvantaged. So if you look at Appendix A, Conservative members 11, therefore number of seats on committees 19.17, Reform number of members 8, therefore just under 14 members. The Conservatives have not been rounded down overly in terms of the proposed allocation of seats, but Reform have not only been rounded down, but by 2 members. It's a 17% reduction in the natural political balance. I mean, forget what's just happened in terms of our victory in the local elections just a few weeks ago, but in terms of the actual balance of this council, we are the only party here that is being disadvantaged in terms of that rounding down by an overtly significant number. Can I have an explanation, please?
Thank you, Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Quirk. There is a formula to work out all these seating proposals. The more people you have on the council, the more seats you'll get. It is done on a political balance, and I'm quite happy to share how that calculation works with you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I understand that, and I'm not seeking to set out how we should go against the national legislation. I know we can't do that. What I'm saying is that in terms of the rounding down to allow Section 15 of the Local Government and Housing Act to prevail would surely mean that the Conservatives would end up with 18 and we would end up with 13. So the Conservatives have not been rounded down from their natural 19 to the proposed 19, but Reform should have 14 seats on committees and we have been provided with 12. That is unfair. It is imbalanced. It's maths, or rather not maths. You take my point. The rounding down has only been applied to the Reform group and nobody else. So yes, there's a formula, but it seems to have been misapplied to the disadvantage of the Reform group in Brentwood. It's not democratic.
We've accepted your point, thank you.
And what are we going to do about it with respect?
Madam Mayor, Councillor Quirk, yeah, so if your seats come up as 1.48, it goes to 1. If it's 1.57, it goes to 2 seats. That's how the percentage works.
No, sorry, that's not the point. Right, so the maths is this. No, sorry, hang on. For those that perhaps aren't particularly numeric, I know you turned up with too few numbers last time. You're hardly mathematicians in the room, but just bear with me. So the Conservatives have 11 members, which translates by way of formula to the number of seats on committees being 19.17. That's clear. Reform have 8 members. The same formula, therefore, provides for 13.94, which is rounded up to 14. So that's the amount of Reform committee seats that we should have. By way of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, I understand there has to be an adjustment to ensure that on a committee it's 5 versus 3 versus 1 or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that if you look at the actual amount that we have been allocated, we've only been allocated 12 seats in total, not 14. The Conservatives' natural political balance by way of that formula is 19, and they have had 19 seats allocated. We have had a 17% reduction in our natural balance by way of our representation on this council versus committee. We have been disadvantaged by 17%. Does nobody else see this? Is it just me in the room that can do the maths, with respect? Bear in mind, I have a maths PhD student, graduate sitting next to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have been unfairly rounded down. I can't put it any clearer than that. Councillor Hurst, do you agree with me?
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. To Councillor Quirk's point, I have been in a similar situation when I led a minority opposition group where, unfortunately, the precedent, and this happened when Councillor Murphy and former Councillor Marsh, an independent group, the smallest opposition group, has precedent taken all of the hit. Last year, Councillor Russell and Councillor Murphy did some form of negotiation and there was some movement in that. But there is precedent for this. It was in last year's numbers. I've been in a position that you have been where I found it fortunate for my group, and this isn't a decision we can make as such, but the opportunity obviously exists, and Councillor Murphy and others have done it before with negotiating with other groups and coming to a balance at it, but the precedent has always been that it's the smallest group takes the hit, which is, I didn't like it when I was a group of 3 and I only had 4 or 5 seats and I lost 2, and I recognise your discomfort. I'm not trying to say it's fair, I'm just saying that's the system. And in turn, it makes sense if you have the opportunity to work with the other opposition group to see if some arrangement can be agreed. But that's, yeah, it's not, it doesn't seem appropriate, but that is the legal reality of it. And that's the precedent that's been set.
Madam Mayor, sorry, it's not just inappropriate, it's a flaw in the maths. This has got nothing to do with the formula. It's that we have been rounded down inappropriately. There is no precedent here. This is not an appeal court. This is not the European Court of Human Rights. There's no precedent in law here. You have to go by what the Act says and the formula. We have been unfairly rounded down. Show me where it says, Councillor Barrett, that the smallest party, because we've got 8 seats rather than 11, gets unfairly mathematically disadvantaged to the detriment of the democracy that should surely prevail in Brentwood. It should be fair and balanced and proper, and this is not.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to hand this to Mr Stevenson.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Quirk. So the Monitoring Office has done the calculation based on a rule that, as you just referenced, the Local Government Housing Act and the Whitcomb factor, which is the rule of how they're set up. You've obviously got a dispute with that. She's done the figures. This agenda was published now twice. That discussion could have happened before this meeting. It hasn't happened, but that's okay. It's happened tonight. So, but what I would say is the Monitoring Office has done those figures. You can make a decision based on that tonight. If you're not happy with that, we can perhaps discuss that afterwards, but the Monitoring has ruled on that and looked into that. I completely understand your point, but she's done it based on the Local Government Act and those figures. And I completely understand your maths, but that is a different rationale of how those figures are interpreted.
I hear you, but I don't accept. Sorry, your point, Jonathan. Hang on, no, this is important. Well, call it a point of order, call it whatever you want. You're suggesting that members should have the debate about such things before the council meeting. That's what these meetings are for,
I
John.
think we need to.
No,
to
that's
stop
what
the-
these meetings are for, is to have such things out, to have an open democratic debate on the detail. So, you know, forgive me for not raising this a week ago, but I thought that council meetings were for the very, very purpose of debates and details such as this. So I'm sorry, I don't accept your premise.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Quirk. So I'm not trying to stifle debate, but it's a technical equation that's worked out to do this, and obviously that discussion could have happened with the monitoring officer prior to tonight. It hasn't. You are discussing it, and you've got the right to discuss that in the chamber tonight. But it is a technical piece of work that's been done with the monitoring officer. The monitoring officer's decision has been made in this. If you've got a technical discussion around this, she's more than happy to speak to you after the meeting. But the figures presented tonight are the figures presented.
Councillor Minot.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is all rather curious. I mean, some of us have been in the council chamber for longer than others. I'm somebody who still regards myself as just being a resident who happens to have the privilege to be able to speak in council chamber. I've never got myself into the position where I regard myself as being a politician. But what we're seeing here is what happens every single year. It's been explained by the officers, it's been explained by Councillor Barrett. The way the system works benefits administrations. It always has benefited administrations. The Section 15B of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, presumably, has been written that way in order to ensure that the functioning of local authorities can actually occur. Because if you had a situation where you could form an administration across the whole council, but you couldn't actually have a majority, the administration didn't have a majority on committees, then the administration would be effectively an administration in name only. There's nothing that's happened this time round. I completely appreciate the point. I've seen this in previous agendas when I've been on the opposition side. You look at the numbers and you get very aggrieved. What's happened here is essentially what's happened in previous years. It does seem odd to me that there's the Conservative number has remained the same, whereas the Reform number has gone down. I don't understand why that would be, but the question I've got in my mind is whether what's being said here is actually a criticism of the officers. Is it a claim that the officers have not done their jobs properly? Because I would be very troubled if that was what was being claimed here. I'm assuming, and I think we all as members need to make the basic assumption that officers have done their jobs properly. They are professionals. They know the ins and outs of this. This has been looked at in detail. If we have a reason to think that officers, if we have a very good reason to think that an officer hasn't done their job properly, there are ways and means of approaching that. I would be very, very uncomfortable if what's happening here is an attempt to suggest that any officer on this council has not done their job properly. In other words, known the law, acted impartially, and applied the law impartially. I am prepared to take that as read. If I had good evidence for any situation like that in any council, on any council agenda, we could talk about it. I don't think we've got that
30
here,
seconds.
and I hope that's not what's going on here.
Madam Mayor, sorry, I need to respond to that. I mean, it's almost an accusation that I'm accusing officers of being crooked. I'm not saying that at all. No, come on, hang on, let me answer the accusation.
I'm
Hang
sorry.
on, it's an absolute
Councillor
point of
Quirk,
order.
this is not appropriate
What
at
I'm
this
trying to say,
moment.
look, what we
Excuse
can't
me.
have in this chamber is you can't stand up for yourself and speak because of some victimhood thing that's played by the other side of the chamber. That wasn't my point at all. Frankly, I don't care who's put the numbers together. What I care about is the political balance and the maths.
This isn't a chamber for one person to keep getting up and speaking. He's made his point. The ruling has been made clear to him. There is an avenue by which you can take it up. He can't respond to every time someone says something that he disagrees and dislikes. But you have not been. You haven't personally been. It was just a suggestion. So let's curtail this debate. There are avenues, and let's get on with tonight's meeting if we can, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Just to say, I don't think anyone is suggesting that the officers haven't done their job properly. It is the way the rules work. The harsh reality is that because of the strange construction and the fact that it is deemed legitimate that a coalition can be hodgepodge together, to quote a phrase used earlier this evening, in the way it has been, it means that 2 seats are taken from Reform and given to a coalition of three separate parties. It's not the way it should really work, but it's the way that it's been constructed in line with the regulations. It's why I can't vote for this, because this council is actually in no overall control. This is not a legitimate process.
I'm sorry, Councillor Payne, you've already spoken, so I'm going to have to go to Councillor Kendall.
Move to the vote.
Yeah, so we'll move to the vote, if that's all right. But he does have reserved his right to speak. Yeah, Councillor Worsfold.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to make a couple of quick points. All through this evening, we've had this accusation that this is some sort of hodgepodge that isn't coherent. I really want to say, for the record, that the Brentwood Alliance is a coherent, united group, and it does have a legitimate right to have a majority in this chamber. That is what the system that we operate in has delivered. The challenge that the electoral process over 2 elections, the all-up elections 2 years ago and the 1/3 election a few weeks ago, that is the challenge that the electoral system has delivered us. We live in a multi-party age. Nobody in this era can complain about having to form coalitions to run administrations, whether they be local authority administrations or perhaps in the future national governments, because in the nations of England, a 6-party system, coalitions will be inevitable. Look, you can make all sorts of arguments about legitimacy. So Reform finished top of the poll, with 36% of the vote in the borough, similar percentage across Essex as a whole, 37% across Essex as a whole. They have 70% of the seats on Essex County Council. Some people might think that that doesn't give them any legitimacy, but that is the system we have. The system may be flawed, you might not like the system. I don't like the system. I've always been in favour of proportional representation. And if you had proportional representation in Essex County Council, the 10-member cabinet tomorrow would have 4 Reform members, 3 Conservatives, and 1 each from the Liberal Democrats, Labour, and the Greens. That's what proportionality would deliver. That would be the coalition challenge in a proper proportional system that you would have on Essex County Council. But that isn't the reality. The reality is we have to accept that our system delivered Reform an enormous majority, and that gives them the legitimacy to run Essex County Council, just as it gives us the legitimacy as Brentwood Alliance, because that's what the system has delivered. It has given us 20 people who are united in purpose and commitment to run this administration efficiently and for the benefit of the borough for the next year.
Councillor Aspinall to sum up, please.
Madam Mayor, it won't take too long. I will give Councillor Quirk, sorry. Don't name him. Sorry. I retract that. I will give some advice to all those who find this unfair. It was given to me by the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, who's sitting here tonight, when I challenged the unfairness of the system at County Hall with Councillor, him down there, and me. And I was told by the said gentleman that if I wanted more representation, I needed to win more seats. And that is what's happened here. The legitimacy of this side of the chamber is signed up on a memorandum of understanding. Everyone signed it. We're committed to running this council for the next 12 months at least, for the benefit of the residents of Brentwood. You may not like it. You can jibe all you like. But that is the legitimacy side of this chamber. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I just request a recorded vote, please?
Yes. That's fine.
Quiet people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start by calling the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and then members in alphabetical order. If you can state clearly whether you're for, against or abstain the recommendations in the report. Councillor N. Cuthbert. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber.
Against.
Councillor G. Barrett. Councillor Dr. Barrett. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Clark. Councillor M. Cuthbert. Councillor Davies. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gascoigne. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Gregory. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Le Payne. Councillor Munden. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minott. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Thompson. And Councillor Worsfold. Thank you.
Motion is carried. Item 7, committee calendar for 26-27. The report begins on page 49 of the agenda. The recommendation is shown on page 49. Councillor Aspinall, please move the recommendations.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Do you wish to reserve your right to speak, Councillor Aspinall?
I'm rather hoping there's no debate on the calendar, but maybe I ought to, just in case that there's some arithmetical error in the calendar.
Is that open?
Many times a calendar's been published at the start of a council year, and then the meetings have been rearranged at short notice. Could we just place on record, please, the request not to do so this coming 12 months? Thank you.
So if nobody else wishes to speak, Councillor Aspinall, would you like to sum up? We will now vote on the recommendation before us as moved by Councillor Aspinall and seconded by Councillor Worsfold as follows. R1, that the calendar of meetings for 2026-2027 in Appendix A be approved. All those in favour? Against? Abstain? The motion is carried. That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.